All right, welcome back, everybody. Ultimately, whether it's in our personal life, our corporate life, profitability is ultimately what we're aiming at. We are doing this for a reason. It's not just out of the goodness of our heart. There are many factors that go into that, building that profitability. Yeah, you do need to measure the numbers and know what's going in, what's going out. We know what you're selling things for and what the margins are. But even more important to that is the way we go about things, the culture in which we surround ourselves has a direct correlation on the profitability of not only you as a person, but also of your corporate business life. So let me bring in Vicki Wright Hamilton, because this is one of her main topics, one of the main things that she loves to coach individuals and groups on, to bring a fresh culture and profitability to the business. How are you doing, Vicki?
I'm great, Todd. How are you today?
I'm absolutely great. I love our times to talk because I spend as much time taking notes as everybody else does. So profitability, that's what we're all aiming at. And, we can examine the numbers, the ones and zeros, but ultimately how we get to that comes, and I've heard you talk about this before, it's the culture we build around us that ultimately leads to our profitability. It becomes our methods, the people we have. I want to hear more about what is this culture that we need around us. So first, let's start with our personal culture. What are the elements in our personal culture that we need to have around us?
So, I'm glad you asked that question, because I believe that culture is self-defined. Now, why do I say that? I say that because we all have our own vision of what we've been exposed to and what has happened in our lives that develops what we think is a good culture or a bad culture. Now, when we're thinking about personal profitability, let's think about that and what it really means. We can talk numbers and zeros, but it's about that data. It's about the personal profitability of what you did through your life. The people you surrounded yourself with, were they the right people? Were they the people that could help you, that could guide you, that could take you forward? Are those the individuals that could help you achieve what you needed to do? Was it the type of opportunities you presented for yourself? I put myself only in situations where I could thrive. I always wanted to be learning. I always wanted to be growing. I wanted to explore different things. Did I travel? Did I not? What is that culture for myself that I want to do? How do I define it for me? Now, when we start to think about that profitability, what makes us profitable is living our lives authentically, is living our lives to do the things that we want to accomplish, that we internally feel very good about. And no one can talk about that profitability but you. You own it. Self-profitability is from within. It's how I define what that culture is of where I want to be. But first, you must define culture for yourself.
And so if I was to add, just give it a different name for how you're describing culture, at least in how you describe that, it's almost, what's the lifestyle that I want? What are the people, you said, what are the people I want around me? What is the boats and the fancy stuff? I'm just kidding on all that part. But what is the lifestyle we're looking for? And then have you defined the ultimate goal you're looking for? What's the trophy that you want to be holding at the end of the day. And that can even go so far as like what Stephen Covey talks about with what are the words you want written on your gravestone. So talk to me more about let's go lifestyle, and then let's go into that trophies and the end goal. So lifestyle, how do I build that out?
So when you think about your lifestyle, and that's why I meant when I said you talk about your dash, is really what are the things that you want to be known for? What is your legacy? What do you want that to be? What is it that you're passionate about? That when someone hears your name, what do you want them to think of?
Oof.
Someone said your name. What is that brand, that image, that thing that you want them to say? No matter, you could say anything about this person you wanted to see, but I always saw them smile. They were always smiling. Or was it that joke? Or was it that voice? Or was it that they're always serving, giving? What is it that you want that to be? And lifestyle is culture, because your cultural environments, everything that makes up that culture, the people you're around, how you operate, all of that is your lifestyle. All of that is how you want to live and the way in which you want to live. So it is part of that thing we call culture. And that's why I say it's self-defined. You have to define what culture means to you, because it may not mean the same thing to everybody. That's why you have different cultures in different businesses. You have people that feel different about cultures even when you go to work, because it's self-defined. Culture is built upon a feeling, not a thing. It is a feeling. How do I feel? How does it make me feel? That gives me that cultural lifestyle.
Something critical, I think we all need to ask ourselves, as a recovering people pleaser myself, who are the other voices that I've invited in that I'm shaping my lifestyle, that end goal that you're talking about, how I want to be seen? Who are those other people I'm allowing to define that ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not the one choosing my lifestyle. I'm not the one choosing who I want to be. So I really like this, how you said it is a personal choice, but it also means being intentional about understanding who are the other people you're listening to. Do you need to turn the volume down on some people? or do you need to fire some people from your emotional boardroom?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I believe all of us should have our own personal board of directors.
Yeah.
And that board of directors are the people who believe in you, who support you, but they're not going to lie to you. They're going to tell you the truth as well, because we all need to have that grounding at some point. But what you want to gain is, what is that North Star for you?
Yeah.
What is that dream of that North Star that's way out there that says, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to be known for. But that board of directors are the ones that keep you grounded, that help you to imagine, that reinforce the positiveness that you're bringing, that also can tell you different perspectives. They can help you see things differently. So that's why when we talk about our circle, sometimes we have an associate circle, just people that I know.
Yeah.
Then we have people that are friends that, yes, we know each other, we do things together, but we're not really close. Then we have those really close friends that are my confidants, the ones that I can talk to about anything, that are always there. You decide who fits where based upon those needs that you have and the direction of where you want to go and how you define that personal culture to ultimately have that profitability for yourself. I gained everything out of this life I wanted to do.
I love that. And I love the decision aspect of it. Vicki, I had a critical period in my life at one point where there was this imaginary board that I had in my head, where there was coaches from when I was little, different people that had spoken into my life. And some of them were really speaking some negative voices to me. And I had to sit down, and of that board, both literal people that I had in my life currently, and then those imaginary people that were from the past, but were still kind of ghosts in my mind. And I went through a process of firing some of them, because I had to decide the voices that I was going to surround myself with.
And that is the critical point.
Yeah.
You decide what's the environment and those you're going to associate with. Some people, it's true. They say some people is for a season, some people are for a reason, and some people are for a lifetime. They can be for a season in your life to help you get through things. It can be a reason to help you learn, gain, or understand something. And then there are people that are there for a lifetime that are through the thick and thin. And there is that long-term purpose that they're solving for you. So at every period in our life, there may be times when you do have to fire people. You have to fire them and say, you know what? I'm no longer in this space. I've outgrown this space, or I no longer feel this way. I want a different environment around me, but no one can make that choice but yourself. And so it's really important that you're honest with yourself. So when you're making these decisions, I'm only going to surround my people like this. I'm one of those people, I don't like negativity.
Yeah.
Someone comes to me and they're coming for coaching. Do you want to grow? Do you want to develop? Do you want to change? If you want to do it, I will stick with you through thick and thin. But I can't want it more than you do.
No.
You have to really want it. That has to be something that you're gaining, something that's going to mean something to you, or it's for naught. So it's always important that, you understand what those boundaries are for yourself. And so I choose to be around happy, positive people when things go bad, because living life, it will. But there's a way to work through it. That's why the word of I can't doesn't work in my vocabulary, in my circle. We can. It may not be the way we imagined it. It may not be the way that we thought it could be, but there is a way to get it done. So that optimism, that ability to work through and to lift each other up. There are going to be days when I'm down. Yes, I want to be around happy people. But when I'm down, I need to be able to talk to those people that can also lift me up when I need to be lifted up. So that's where all of that profitability comes in, because it's profitable to me when I have people lift me up. And it's profitable to me when I lift others up.
So ultimately, if we define the outcome we're really wanting to attain and work ourselves backwards with the people, the boundaries, and so we're always moving towards that outcome that will lead to the profitability. Vicki, I hope you're a friend for a lifetime, but I definitely want you to be a friend for the next segment. And so, because we need to talk about how to shape the culture for our team and our business so we can lead to the corporate environment. So stick with us, Vicki, and we'll be right back. All right, you two, stick with us. We'll be right back. Vicki's going to be right on the other side. Stick with us. So, Vicki, I love our conversations. Therefore, I don't want to stall any longer. Let's talk about we in the corporate. We have different corporate environments. Where we have influence. Each of us have different areas. How can we shape that culture to aim towards profitability?
So, it's a very interesting dynamic when you begin to think about culture and profitability when it comes to a business. And here's why. If you don't own the business, the outset of what somebody wants for that culture is not necessarily yours. Now, the restrictions in that is that I still have to fit within what's the overarching culture so that I am still looked at as supporting the corporate culture. But that individuality, we all bring a uniqueness when we come to work. And I was it's just interesting. I had a conversation this morning just on this very subject. And what ends up happening is that as an individual, when you walk into a team or an environment in corporate, you obviously have your own values, thoughts, beliefs when you walk in the door. Some of them are going to be accepted. Some of them are not going to be accepted. And what ends up happening is your behaviors set the direction of the culture that you are creating within that environment. So how do I behave within this environment? Is it acceptable? Is it not? Can I be authentically me? Am I allowed to think Am I allowed to speak? Am I allowed to own the things that are important to me? If not, it may not be the right fit. And I have to put myself in another area of a culture that allows me to do those things that I'm good at. And you have to be able to determine that by determining how you feel. Again, culture is about feelings. Culture is about making me feel like I belong when I'm in the right culture versus when I'm not.
So I like how you say it. First, understand the ecosystem that you're operating within so that you're not a rogue unit within the overall, because then ultimately the higher ups are going to say, hey, you don't fit here. You're not part of our team. So you have to fit within that. But then this honesty of like a self-assessment, a environment assessment. Can I speak up? Is my voice valued? Do I want my voice to be valued? I mean, that honest assessment is necessary. What's the next thing that they needed to do?
So now the other thing is that yes, you're an individual, but you don't own that business. So
Yeah.
now let's talk reality. Reality is that the business owner that owns that business sets the direction strategically, sets the direction of where they want to go. And at the end of the day, everything we do as individuals impact that business. A business doesn't do things on its own, people do it. So our people are doing the work. So if people don't feel valued, if people don't feel like they're engaged, people don't feel like they're contributing, then they don't want to do the work. And then the business owner ends up with those things not being completed or done. So it is imperative that every business owner recognizes what kind of environment they're setting. But at the end of the day, it's about their numbers and their profitability. Now, let's make it real. Turnover costs money. Recruiting costs money. Not having people work at the top of their game costs money. If I'm a person that comes in and spends 8 hours and I'm just checking the box and I walk out the door, you're really not getting the full potential. If I go in and I'm working 8 hours and I love what I do and I'm engaged in what I do and I'm able to do more, provide more quality, more feedback, more reaction, contribute more, then you're able to make more money. So at the end of the day, when a business begins to look at what they're doing, they need to understand the value of their most valuable asset, which is people. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that businesses do is that when they go to survey their employees, first of all, you got to make employees feel like it's safe. Is it anonymous? Are you going to be caught? Are you not? What kind of HR department do you have? All those kinds of things contribute to it. But it's also the way we design a survey. Let's ask survey questions that are dealing with behaviors, not perceptions. Let's ask survey questions that's going to give us real live information that we can act upon so that we can begin to change culture where needed. We can change those dynamics so we don't lose our valuable assets and the intellectual property walk out the door because it costs the business money. So when you go into a business, when you can show the value of what you are suggesting, the value of what it's going to do to help them and their bottom line, because after all, they're there to make money. Every business is in business to make money. They don't just have a business. Now, they want to serve, they want to go to their customers, they want to help, but every business is there to make money. So everything we do can take away from that profitability if we aren't real.
So is it fair to say you want to define the value that the leader, the owner is looking for, provide that value, so make sure the behaviors and the actions are aiming towards that. But you said that the greatest asset are the people. So it's also making sure the people around you feel valued as well. So like you said, the intellectual property doesn't go out the door.
Exactly. But training costs money, right? When you need somebody to help you out, when you're on vacation and they got a backfill, you need somebody who knows how to do some of the things that you're doing so that the business can continue to move forward. So the idea of what's around you, who's around you, and how you're operating as a team is important. And whether you lead a team or not, you lead yourself. So how you lead yourself, how you lead others, how you work with others, all of that are dynamics that feed into that bottom line of that profitability. And it also feeds into that self profitability. How happy am I? Am I satisfied? Am I doing the things I want to do? So that's why they aren't separate. They're actually cohesive. They're one another. Because when we go to work, we don't leave ourselves outside the door.
No.
We're told, oh, leave your personal problems out the door. It doesn't happen.
Mm-mm.
It's in the back of your head. That challenge is still there. You're still dealing with it. It's not going away, but you try to do what? Compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm at work, I got to deal with work. I can't deal with that right now, but it doesn't go away. And you're human. You're human. So when things bother you, and it's in the forefront of your mind, you need to be able to deal with it. So you need to know, am I in a culture where I can go and say, look, today is really a hard day for me. I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z, and I really need time to work by myself today. So I'm going to be working on X, Y, and Z so I'm still productive, but I need that time for me so that I can concentrate because some of the challenges I'm dealing with. Do you work in that kind of environment or not? Do you have that kind of leader or not? So it's really important for you to understand those behaviors, the boundaries within the circle that you're working within. But ultimately for a business, their profitability, they need to think about how much is it costing me when somebody leaves? How much is it costing me when I'm not taking their feedback and doing something with it? I'm not just listening, but I'm acting. I'm doing something. I hear you. I heard you when you said that. That's why it's important when we ask for feedback that we ask for things that are behavioral. We ask for things that are more factual and not opinions, because all of us have opinions. So you can do a survey and get 1,000 opinions for 1,000 different employees. We all have opinions, but it's really about how do I make this an environment that's safe, that people want to participate in and want to give their all.
And this is very similar to your personal culture that you laid out, defining the end goal especially as the boss and the company defines it. And then what is the lifestyle that I need within that environment? What are the boundaries I need? Who are the people I need to make sure I'm feeding and talking to and I'm surrounding myself with? If I have negative people within my immediate environment, who are the other people I need to connect with to offset that negativity? And ultimately, what are the behaviors of that lifestyle culture that lead to that end goal that not only the boss is defined, but also I've defined as an individual. And it's still the same element of taking control, taking ownership of your environment, your culture, your behaviors, the people around you. We're still in control of our world, aren't we?
You know, the bottom line is that we all have the power of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Choice is the most powerful thing we have. We can say, I don't like it, I want to leave. We can say, I don't like this department, I want to go to a different one. We can say, you know what, I'm going to put up with this for a little bit longer while I'm searching. I'm not really sure. You know, and maybe I can grow and learn something, but the choice is yours. Nobody makes that choice but you. You have to understand the consequences of your choice. You have to understand where that choice puts you, but the choice is yours. So a lot of times we try to make it feel like when we're in these work environments, you know, I'm trapped. Well, you know, we feel trapped when I got to pay bills, when I got to feed my family. But guess what? Let's start working on a contingency plan. If this isn't working for you, start working on plan B, C, and D, right? What are the other things you can do? You know, what are the other outlets you can do to bring you joy? Whether it's volunteering for organizations, participating in associations, whatever it may be. But what are those other things that you can do as well? So one of the things we have to do is take accountability for ourselves and recognize the decision is mine. I determine what it means. Now, that doesn't mean a business isn't going to come tap you on the shoulder and say, we no longer need you anymore. Mm-hmm. But if you stay on top of what's going on in the business culture, what's happening in the business industry, where they're headed and where they're going, a lot of times you can see the foresight. This doesn't feel really good. I think some things are going to change, or the industry is changing, or things are happening with our customers. You still have to work on plan B, C, and D. You should always have a contingency plan. And I'll leave your listeners with one thing. I tell every person I coach, you should interview for a job at least once a year, whether you take it or not. You know why? You'll always know your value. You have the choice to turn it down, but you'll always know your value. So go out there and seek what's in the market. Go find out. So interview for at least one job a year. You could be totally happy. But it's to understand, where am I in this industry? Where do I fit in? And what is my true value?
I love it. Thank you so much, Vicki. Thank you for the time. And thank you for all the fire that you bring every time that we get to talk.
Thank you for having me. It was
all right. All right, everybody, stick with us. We got more on culture right after this. Welcome back, everybody. I'm glad you stuck with us. Boy, Vicki is, as always, she is on fire. I absolutely love talking to her. Now, look, if we're going to get to profitability, we're always focused on the numbers, the margins, the ones and the zeros. Where's the comma actually at in this? Because I need more commas in my profitability. However, it's really a people problem. What we think is a numbers problem is often a people problem. If we don't set the right culture for our company, our team, for us as individuals, it's not going to point towards the profitability that we're actually desiring. So I've got a guest I'm very excited to bring on today. She was one of the very first teachers in LinkedIn Learning, even before it was LinkedIn Learning. She was among the very first people to start that out. And so you can find her in LinkedIn very easily. So we've got an expert of experts here today. Deirdre Breakenridge, how are you doing today, Deirdre?
I'm doing well, Todd. How are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful. I love talking to you because it's a communication coach to another communication coach. You really speak a lot on it really being influential and really how to, because the name of your company is the Influential Communicator. So I want to take this topic, Deirdre, of how to set culture within your company, and let's get as tactical as we can. There's one topic I hear you talk about a lot. It's about champions within the culture. First off, what do you mean by that?
Building champions in the culture means people who are invested, they're engaged, they want to go out and shout from the rooftop about the company. And there's many champions that are just undiscovered within organizations. And I think that's what we should talk about today, Todd.
I love that. So, okay. So in other words, you got the people that clock in, clock out. You got the people that just checking the boxes, that are just doing the factory line work, it's just a transaction for them. They're not invested in the cause. They don't have a sense of purpose. But you said there are those that you can recognize there's a sense of purpose within them. Is that a good definition for the champion?
Well, I think the champion definitely has a sense of purpose. It's someone who wants to be involved. And companies tend to look at different departments and people maybe who are working around the communications. I came out of a PR and a marketing background, and it's involving other people to get involved in the communication and the events and what goes on. And something as simple as a survey to your own people, or a town hall, letting them know what's going on, your transparent communication, that gets people excited. And then helping them to understand what's the best ways for them to share.
Okay, so you recognize these people that are kind of raising their hand more. They're wanting to join in more. You have ways of finding them, and so they're kind of you're shining your bright spots. Not maybe even sometimes not even your high performers, but those who are setting the culture, the encouragers, the joiners of the group. Okay, So now that we've defined this champion, how do they shape culture? What's the impact on it? So talk me through a little bit more on am I looking to develop them? What do I do now that I have this definition? What do I need to do next?
So I think it's understanding, and it's the way you lined up this discussion. It's that culture is not a soft topic. You might think it is, but it has real impact. That's number one. Number two is understanding that people don't have to necessarily stick around today anymore. It used to be back in the day, maybe with our grandparents, they would go to a company and stay there their entire career. Today, it's different. You can go in for 2 years and then leave. That's what younger professionals are doing. So it's what can a company do to build their shared set of values, beliefs, experiences, attitudes that then shape the way the employees interact together, and then the way they interact with customers and other important stakeholders.
You said something very interesting, because when you bring the context of this quitting, the quiet quitting, and all the impact of the whole Gen Z movement and just how it's changing culture corporately, would you say that it's really about creating more champions that are engaged? So you're trying to turn the tide from those that are clocking in and clocking out to more champions. Is that kind of the picture you're laying out for us?
Yes. So you're not clocking in and clocking out anymore. One champion can create 10 to 100 to thousands because you're feeling included. That's what it is. It's not just about the profits and the shareholders. It's about the experience of the people within that then translates out. Their engagement together and how they interact makes better productivity, which then turns into maybe better customer service. And that leads to profitability.
Okay.
So what do you do on the inside?
Yeah.
And companies need to step back.
I like that. So it's pulling people out of the crowd and getting them engaged, hearing their voice, bringing them into the conversation in essence. So how does, let's lay out a how-to list.
Okay.
How does a company build a culture that creates more champions? What can they do practically to get rid of the clock in and clock outers and create more champions?
Well, they have to show they care. Number one, that is not just about the profits. And caring comes in different ways. It could be the health and well-being, the programs you put in place. It could be around professional development, that you're giving the employee the opportunity to learn and to grow. It could be a way around how you let them innovate or handle different projects and take ownership. It's the intrapreneur instead of the entrepreneur. There's different ways that really help people to say, I can be a part of this. I own this. I love this. And now I want to talk about this and share this with everybody.
So to define that phrase for me, because not everybody's aware of intrapreneur versus entrepreneur, and because that identifies our audience and how we engage and connect with them. So define that for us.
So I'm an entrepreneur and I have my own company and I'm building a business. On the inside of a company, every employee has the chance to be an intrapreneur, where you look at your role as if it's your own company, as if you are innovating in a way and growing its entrepreneurial spirit, just like I would as an entrepreneur show my entrepreneurial spirit as I build and grow my company.
I think that's the gateway for our how-to is how do you create a sense of ownership within the organization? I heard you say something great already. You're asking their opinion. Uh-huh. You're allowing them to innovate, meaning you're giving them space to grow. Tell me, what do you think of this tactic? And this is one of the ways I coach our leaders within our organization. Is I say it's a coach approach to leadership. I say, how often do you toss the ball back to them because you trust that they're going to come up with a good answer?
I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's important because just that word trust, That's what builds the champions. I trust you enough to take this to the next step or to share something that can then add to whatever it is we're working on that's innovative. That toss back shows also appreciation of their intellectual capital.
Ooh, yeah. And communicating the caring that you talk about. If I
Yes,
feel like somebody values me, I'm going to speak up more.
definitely.
If I feel like they think my opinion is worth something, I'm going to actually be bold and speak out more. So what you're saying, that makes me a champion. That means
Yes,
I feel a sense of ownership of that project, that division, whatever we're doing.
exactly. And it's also understanding that you're giving feedback. So every champion wants to give feedback.
Mm.
And then the company or whatever managers or executives, it's the decision, how do we use this feedback? But always letting that person know if we're not using it, it's appreciated. Or maybe we're not using it now. It could come down later. We could be using it. And just helping them to understand that if I give my opinion, if I give feedback, that it's well received.
Let's talk about the two-way direction of that feedback, because that you just laid out a very critical aspect of, are you listening to the feedback that they're giving? And even if you don't use it now, saying this was good, we may use it in the future. So affirming it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a leader or manager, how you give feedback even will determine if that person's going to be a champion or just sit lower in their seat.
Absolutely. And when you're giving feedback, it's never personal. It's not about the person. It's about the activity, the action, and helping them to exceed expectations. I think that's an important part of giving feedback.
So how can you communicate, if you're the leader, how can you communicate and give feedback to someone so that they feel that they still feel ownership and they want to step into this?
I think there's different models of giving feedback, but you always want to let people know where they're on the right track, what is appreciated. And if you're going to help them to move forward, then feedback has to be immediate. It has to be specific. It can't be very vague or ambiguous. That's not helpful. And then also helping them to understand the behavior that, or the action that you would like to see that you think might be even more helpful. And when you can do that, it is more well received.
I agree 100%. If you come heavy handed, it's going to knock the person down.
Right.
And if you give that in a way of, how would you handle this? How would you do this in the future? You're tossing that ball back. So Deirdre, would you stick with me after the break? Because there's another concept of ambassadors that you talk about that I want to bring into this. So you've got champions, and what is the difference in an ambassador? Will you stick with us?
Sure.
All right. All right, I want all of you to stick with us as well. Right after the break, Deirdre's going to jump into what is an ambassador versus a champion. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking with us. You know, I love this picture that she laid out about these champions and how we can grow them. Really, human to human, showing how much we care, that their voice is important, their opinion is important, the things that they do are important. How can we empower the people? And if they feel a sense of ownership, they will be the champions of our culture, our company, and ultimately impact our profitability. Now, there's this additional topic, and Deirdre, of ambassadors. So the context is the champion is inside the company, and that's shaping the internal brand and how we're operating within the walls. But the ambassador, what you say is that's what's going on outside of the walls.
Right. The brand ambassador. It's that loyal, enthusiast, customer, fan who wants to speak about the company, advocates for the brand. Where's the brand? You don't have to ask them to buy things. They go ahead and do it, and they're giving great reviews. That's your best kind of ambassador.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like a referral lead is better than any other type of lead in the world. So let's define this just a little bit more. Okay. So are these ambassadors, because I mean, this is a very interesting trend, especially in social media marketing right now, where you'll have sometimes it's internal employees or staff members, team members who then start talking outwardly, but then sometimes a marketing strategy is actually hiring these influencers to be ambassadors.
Yes.
So is there another category, or are those the two types of people we're talking about?
Well, you can't lump all influencers together.
Okay.
We have to remember that when people are out on social media, their communities are different, the size of their communities, the influence they have over them. So I break it down. I look at ambassadors, influencers on different levels. You might have up and coming influencers, and these are folks who have maybe smaller communities, a few thousand in their community, but they're influential and they're growing their influence. You can have trendsetters. Trendsetters are influencers. We define them in my book, Putting the Public Back in Public Relations. They're influencers who just follow certain industries. They're passionates who only look at a certain type of product. There's A-list influencers. These are equivalent of the big time journalists, whether they're at a Forbes or a Fortune or a Wall Street Journal. And then there's super fans who are influencers. But the connecting thread is that they have people who believe they're credible. They have people who trust what they say. And that makes for a great ambassador for a company.
Okay, so in choosing these ambassadors, is it about looking at the community that they're representing, that trust them? So is it making sure that the two cultures actually they align with one another? What are you looking for when you're choosing the influencer that you want to bring into your culture sphere?
That is a good question, and more companies should answer it because you always want to align your brand with what is on par with your values, your beliefs, your attitudes, what your customers expect from you. That's what a brand is. It's a culmination of all of your customers' expectations. It's not just a moniker. It's not your logo. And it's really important that you make sure you live up to your promise through your ambassadors.
Absolutely. It has to be on brand, has to be on point. Whatever that champion is buying into, you want to make sure it's congruent with that influencer, I'm assuming.
Right. And when you want that influencer to be able to say, I use this product, and this is what I found with it, and I appreciate it, and I love it, because if the influencer can say that to a community of 50,000, how many products will be sold? How many people will actually go and purchase? These influencer marketing campaigns track what the influencers say, track the messaging, track, of course, the sales of the product as well.
So how do you, if you're Mr. Business owner, Mrs. Business owner, how do you find one of these influencers? I mean, I think that's probably one of the bigger questions. I mean, I'll see some of them post and people will just nail them products. Is it a mail them a product and see if they, like, you put the hook out there and see if they take it, or what's the process?
So typically you have to know who they are first. And the only way to do that is to monitor on social media, to listen, to use monitoring tools that uncover different individuals, community members who are talking about you, who are sharing about your products, who are loving what you do. And then once you start to identify them, keep listening, keep watching to see how they interact in their communities. And then you build a relationship. And that's the best way to approach the ambassador, whether it's we're going to pay you because you have a certain large following and that meets your expectations, or it's a program where you have super fans who would share for you no matter what.
So really, so as you're defining it, this ambassador, your culture is really all the people you bring into the conversation. all the people, your culture is just like the brand. It's what are people saying about you? So if you're enlisting ambassadors, it's this internal culture, an extension out, and they're speaking that same language ideally to these new audiences, and ideally giving the referral, because that's the best lead, and ultimately leads to profitability, which is our conversation.
Exactly. And it begs the question, who really owns the brand? Your people own the brand. The customers own the brand. The influencers are reaching the customers. Your brand is constantly being shaped. It's not in the days of old where the brand was shaped in the boardroom. Maybe it might start there at some time, but if you think about it, how are brands really shaped with this ability to listen to hundreds and millions of conversations on social media and tapping into them and learning and adding to what you do?
I like this picture of bringing it down to the conversational levels, because ultimately your internal culture that leads to profitability is how is everyone talking to each other, and how are you talking about the product to the clients? And so ultimately the extended culture, the ambassador, what is that conversation ultimately looking like? So from a communication expert, when you're speaking to a ambassador that you want to be an extension of your culture, how do you give them guidelines? How do you frame things up so the conversation is on point and it does come across as an extension of you?
Well, if you're going into a campaign, a program, there's contracts, there's expectations of what an influencer would be doing as a part of your program. And anybody who's working with the brand, there's brand guidelines. We've been establishing brand guidelines for years, and it's no different. Today on social media, if you're using influencers, they have to adhere to the brand guidelines as well.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, contracts do lay everything out. Absolutely. And so, okay, let me shift the gear just a little bit, because that external influencer, we can control that contractually. I mean, they're receiving compensation in many cases. So we can control that conversation. You get them guidelines ahead of time. They follow the guidelines. What about that champion who's speaking out, or that raving fan that you talked about? Because that's also a new trend where just key employees just start talking about the company more, and they become brand ambassadors, an extension of. Talk to me a little bit more about that. How do you control that message?
Can't control.
Yeah.
No, you can guide. You can definitely guide the conversation. You can educate your employees on the best ways to communicate, especially through social media. Most employees do want to share what they're excited about, but they're apprehensive because no one has really said how to share. So there's training, there's social media policies. They don't have to be 75 pages. It could be 2 pages well written that give some good guidelines and hints of the right ways to participate, so everybody wins.
And it's this indirect approach of training, really, because no one likes to be talked at. Let's say I did speak out for my company, and my manager comes and says, we really didn't like how you said that sentence. I'm never going to speak on social media again, because if they're going to be critical of the words that I say or the tone of voice, but now, like you said, if I equip them on how to communicate, now I'm teaching them to fish,
Right. Teaching them how to communicate, but that doesn't mean taking away their personality or the way that they present themselves. And that's the beauty of having all those champions on the inside. You're getting company messaging and excitement, and they're endorsing and advocating, but you're also getting personality. You're learning about what it's like to be on the inside through these people. And that's what people on the outside want to know. They want to interact with the people on the inside.
And so the profitability comes as your internal culture connects with all these unique audiences, as all these different unique personalities come out. and become an extension of you. Deirdre, I don't want to end the show without giving people the opportunity to get on your newsletter, where you are giving these gems just like this on a regular basis, and people can work with you directly as well. So LinkedIn is the best way to connect with you. Deirdre Breakenridge, and obviously not the number, but your name's right there. So connect, and hey, I encourage everybody to get on that newsletter and hear these communication gems, because that is the superpower in today's world. Thank you. Absolutely. All right, everybody, that's it for today's show. You've got culture from controlling your internal, your what surrounds you, to how you impact your corporate environment, like Vicki talked about. But then Deirdre brings in the champions and the ambassadors that impact the profitability that we're actually looking for. I love it. I can't wait to see you guys next week. We'll see you then.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.